maybe picture us. But our first guest here this morning is a guy who ran this race for the second time today, or finished for this race for the second time today, and was 6 hours slower than last time. So, Andy Jones-Wilkins, what happened out there?
Well, I've gotten a little slower in 17 years, but Chris, thanks for having me. Good, Troy. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Congratulations on this finish. I have to say, I was actually emotional when I found out what your time was, because I actually was sleeping like some other people out there when you came across the line. 22:42, I believe.
Yeah, 22:42.
For a guy with, as you know, you've openly shared 2 ceramic hips. You know, how did it go? And to even further go on that, you and I had discussions, and you weren't blowing smoke when you just said you didn't think 24 was in the cards anymore. You had a pretty rough day out at Jackrabbit Jubilee a couple weeks ago in the heat, and you were like, well, I just want to finish. And I was going to be stoked for your finish no matter what, but you had a hell of a day out there. Thanks,
Chris. And this race means a lot to me from the time I ran it 17 years ago, and it was part of, I'm good friends with Jerry Kilgariff, the founder of the race, and I went and touched her bench each time I went by. And
awesome.
Her bench is out there right about 7 miles around the loop, and it just felt like the right thing to do. I haven't run a 100-miler since 2021 at Bighorn, and so I relocated to Phoenix, Shelley and I, about 2.5 years ago now, and we lived here in the 90s, and we love it here, and we've completely, especially me, kind of embedded myself along with you and, you know, into the Aravaipa running and Arizona running community. And my roots in the Arizona running community go back, you know, long before Aravaipa, and, you know, with the, you know, Paul and James Bonet and Scott Mojalewski and Ed Zarambo, and, you know, a lot of the OGs in Arizona, and this race, now that I've done it, like, I've been here a couple of years to cover it, but now that I've done it, that what they've done that's just so remarkable is maintained that in this massive now party, they've maintained the essence of Javelina from all those years ago, and now I've lived it on my own for 22 hours and 42 minutes, and I couldn't be happier right now.
Yeah, AJ, I'd love to ask you juxtapose that, because like Chris was saying before you came on a couple minutes, 15, 20 minutes ago, that, 15 years ago or 16 years ago was your first finish. So like, talk about the differences between the vibe that's happened over the last 16 years. I mean, obviously this is the big party in the desert, but I imagine things were quite a bit different back then.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, one thing that it was still was a big party in the desert.
Love that.
When Jerry started the race, she was out doing a Pemberton loop with a friend, and in 2002, at the time there were no 100-milers in Arizona. You either had to go to California or Colorado or further afield than that. So to run a 100-miler was a big commitment for Arizonans, and Jerry thought, she was the race director at Zane Grey at the time. She called it Highline. It's now called Zane Grey, the 50-miler, and she asked her friend, do you think anybody would be crazy enough to come out here and just run loops around the desert, around Halloween? Maybe we have a costume theme and we have a party. And her friend said, sure. I mean, what's the worst thing that can happen? And she got 140 people to sign up in 2003. It was up at the Pemberton lot, which is a couple miles from where we're sitting right now, a little bit smaller parking lot. And the loop, it was just a 15.3 mile loop that you did 6 times, and then a shorter, you cut across Tonto for the 7th time. It did washing machine loops in reverse direction, and she did it for 3 years, and then the Rubliks, Jimmy and Roger, mainly Jimmy, who was 17 years old at the time, took over the race director for a couple of years, and then Jamil took it over and has made it into what we see today. So, I felt the vibe still from that time 17 years ago out here today, and I hope. I think we see the vibe alive and well in the live stream. This picture we're looking at right now. The vibe of Javelina is truly unique, and I for one do think it has a place on the Mount Rushmore of North American 100-milers. It's really different than Western States, Hard Rock, and Leadville. And I think because it's really different and because it's so unique, that's what makes it special.
Yeah, I've always, sorry, I know you have something to say, Chris, but I was going to say, I feel like it anchors in, like, those races you mentioned, like, really hone into that, like, old school community vibe. But I think what Javelina does at scale is really amplify the community, like, how the community that it is, that we are as ultra runners, you know, we're just kind of that, like, that vagabond band of freaks, and we all get to get together here at Javelina at the end of the year. And as someone who's experiencing it for the first time, I feel the magic that you're talking about. And I also just want to say 120 runners 20 years ago to sign up for 100 that's
never been run before.
Your first time race, that shows that there was definitely a need, right? They were filling a need, and obviously, you know, here we are. So from 100 to 1,000. So
looking at our screen right there, we have Brianna Santos in the orange off to the right, finishing the Javelina 100 in 24:39:21. Just before her, Alvaro Puertas, 24:37:47. Congratulations to our most recent Javelina 100 finishers.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to Claire. I'm going to butcher her name. Feuchner. She's a member of the Cowgill Collective out of the PNW, and she's finishing here at Javelina. So
let's find out a little bit more about Claire here, really quick.
And as we get into that, we have a question from the chat, AJ, for you. Natasha Sankovic. What was the most challenging aspect of the race? The heat, the older bones, the nutrition, for you?
Excellent question. I, to be honest, I had kind of my friend and colleague Jason Coop often talks about, you know, the most well executed races are actually pretty boring. And
yes,
and I had a pretty boring race. My nutrition was on point. I mean, I kicked it old school, kind of in honor of the. Yeah, we're going to jump right in with the finisher.
Yeah, so it looks like this is going to be Clara coming in right here.
Yep.
Having run the Big Alta earlier this year, Tillamook Burn, run the Rock a couple years ago, but this is...
Look at the collective showing up for her.
Oh, look at that. That's a fantastic finish.
Cowgill Collective has made themselves very well known here in the last couple of years. Of course, Blake Slatengren, I guess the most prominent representative that we've seen out here succeed.
Another finisher. Oh.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations to Clara. Looks like about a 24:41, 24:42 finish. We'll get that official finalized number here shortly, but congratulations to Clara. Sorry, AJW,
while I chose not to run the race in costume, I did kind of pay homage to that 2003 ethos with a runner's den crop top and handheld bottles for the whole race.
Sean McManus let me down because I actually tried to get one. I was going to try and get one and be wearing what you were wearing out there at Rattlesnake Ranch.
So it was, I mean, I wouldn't normally necessarily kind of sport that in a 100-mile race, but to directly answer Natasha's question, I had one major misjudgment with respect to the heat. And that was, I expected things to start to cool down in Loop 3. I was running pretty well. I was kind of fully mentally prepared for Loop 2 to be the nightmare loop. I finished that at about 2:40 and got out on my Loop 3 at 2:50. And it was my Loop 3 that was the worst. You know, it was at least until the sun went behind the mountain. So that was the most difficult part, getting up to that point, right around mile 50, I was hurt.
Yeah.
But from there, man, it was a great race.
Clara Froschner's final finish time was 24:42:33. Shout out to our most recent finisher of the 100K, Andrea Helms, 23:28:19.
Well, AJ, I saw you briefly at Jackass Junction around that mile 50 mark during that third loop, and I will attest it was hot, and I wanted to say what's up to you, but I'll be honest, man, you were doing like a grizzled veteran should. You were in and out of the aid stations. I think you hit your drop bag for just a second. You were laughing and joking with the people running the ice station, but you were moving well, and you were in and out, and I just thought to myself, like, I mean, whatever fanboy moment here. I want to be like AJ when I grow up. You know what I mean? Like I saw a couple people out there rocking it old school with double handhelds, like being super efficient.
Did you see his handhelds though? Those things were like relics.
Were you rocking the original
Ultimate
UDs?
Direction?
Yeah, those are great bottles.
With the nipple tabs.
With the weird red, like those are great. So
the straps on those things look like they had seen better days for sure.
They're very good, Chris. They work the whole time.
Yeah,
and I'll bring them back again next year.
Good. Oh, is that an early call of the shot to come back out here and come for the triple?
Well, I will say too that it was. I had a couple of soft goals going in. One of which was to not sit at all, which was kind of always my goal in my years of running Western States. So I never sat down. And the other soft goal was to run on all 5 laps. To run every step from Jackass to Rattlesnake, because it's my favorite section of the course. I mean, if I could, it was kind of like my desert island moment. If I was stuck on a desert island and had one section of trail to run for the rest of my life,
on repeat.
It would be the section. It would be the section from Jackass to Rattlesnake in that direction.
Well, AJ, I wanted to let you know. Natasha says thanks, AJW. I've learned so much from you, podcast articles, commentating, etc. So I just want to give
Natasha.
She's giving you some shine in the chat, and I wanted to relay that to you.
Also, I want to plug the fact that you had such a great interview with Jerry Kay this weekend. I listened to it Friday morning on my way to the expo and felt amped and excited. Jerry Kilgariff, for those just tuning in or perhaps unfamiliar with Javelina lore, as you mentioned, the creator of the Javelina 100, and she had kind of become a low-profile individual in the running scene. She hiked. She said that she doesn't race anymore. But a couple years ago, I did reach out to her to try and get her to come out here through a mutual friend, Linda Van, who also integral in the Arizona running scene and its development. And Linda set us up, and we brought Jerry Kay over to talk with Jamil. They had known each other a long time, but again, hadn't talked, and they had a great discussion. And then the next year, Jerry was out here in front of the crowd as an honorary race marshal
to celebrate the 20th anniversary of her founding of the race.
Yeah, absolutely amazing moment last year to see Jerry Kay out here, and I think it's actually now immortalized in the profile or the race briefing. So we can see it looks like we've got a runner with an unofficial pacer here coming into the finish line.
The dad feels are real right now. So we had another runner just finished, Chris, and I was trying to find him in the live tracking.
Yeah, it looks like our tracker is being a little bit finicky as far as the names. So
AJ, just so you know, Miss Julie Moffett says, I remember you cheering for me in my golden hour finish at Western States this year. Way to crush it. So lots of love for AJW. And then Christina Reswig says, tell him Bay Runners say hi. He's a badass, and we all want to be like AJW when we grow up. So
Robert Ramey was our most recent finisher. We saw there 24:43:19.
Awesome.
That name sounds familiar. I think we've called that name in some other
We
races,
might have.
Chris.
I'll have to
I don't mean
dig
to
a little
change
bit.
roles here. I know that name just does. I don't know if it's a Cocodona or a Black Canyon.
Robert Ramey is a local here out of Chandler, Arizona.
Okay.
Actually, dusted us both at Hangover 50K. Apparently, ran a 5:42 out there. But you know what? You got him back this weekend.
I want to say as well too. I appreciate these kind words about Crack a Brew with AJW. I am honored and humbled how many people out there literally today told me how much they love the podcast. Like, I never knew when I launched this podcast after many years of being cajoled by Scott and Don at Trail Runner Nation to start my own podcast. I never knew that it would be so popular, and I appreciate it. It's a labor of love for me. It's very talk showy, and it was so great to hear from so many people in this community event, and this is my community now. Having that kind of affirmation, and each time coming through here. This is another thing we didn't have. We didn't have this in 2007 either. Going 3/4 of a mile or half a mile through this tunnel of tents. There's literally people, like, oh, AJW, like and they're doing it for a lot of people. I mean, it is just so. It's just it kind of it gives you something to look forward to. You know, by basically from Rattlesnake Ranch here, you're like, oh man, I'm gonna get there soon, and I'm gonna get that kind of vibe and that love when I get running around there again. And it's just what an amazing thing.
Well, I'm glad that we finally got you into the podcast world, dragged kicking and screaming into the modern times, because I know that one of the things that AJW likes to joke about off the air is that, 10 years ago, I love your articles, love your column, and now he's like, so many people love your podcast. He goes,
I don't know if people read it anymore.
But you know what? The thing about the podcast at night, it's nice, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, Troy, is that people can take it with them while they're running.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm guilty of it myself.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Well, my favorite. I mean, obviously, I love the interviews, AJ, and I'm a listener of the pod. But I like that you took the anchor of most of your articles at on I Run Far and brought it into the podcast as far as what are you drinking, and so the audience gets obviously it's nice to be able to get to know the audience through questioning, but you can tell a lot about somebody by their choice of beverage when they decide to just sit back and crack one open, right? And I guess you brought a beverage into the studio, so let's talk about what do you AJ, what are you sipping on today?
What am I sipping on today? Well, hello everybody. Welcome. This is a funny story, and it is, maybe this person will see this interview. I've been posted up. My crew, Shelly, my wife, and son Logan have been posted up at the CTS tent here. CTS is one of the sponsors of Javelina this year, and so I was crewed out of there, and a person we do not yet know the identity of came over and said, "Hey, I wasn't there. Hey, I love AJW's podcast. Here's a 4-pack for him. Can you just, tell him I love his podcast?" And so it is East Runaway IPA, unfiltered West Coast from Old Schoolhouse Brewing. Old Schoolhouse Brewing. If the identity of that person would like to make themselves known, or if anybody knows in the chat where Old Schoolhouse Brewery is, I'd love to know. And by the way, this is very tasty as my first post-race beverage.
Of course, your first.
I don't normally drink at 6:48 in the morning.
Well, yeah, because usually you start when you finish about 4:30 in the morning, right? Yeah. I want to shout out to our one of our next finishers here. I saw them coming through here. Maybe I'll have to wait because it looks like we have somebody moving a little bit quicker behind us. But I do want to shout out also our most recent finisher, Corey Johnson, 24:47:59. Congratulations to Corey.
Well, love that someone is such a fan and knows you so well as to bring a very nice. I mean, if you're a listener of the pod, you know that AJ is a fan of his unfiltered West Coast IPAs, as I am as well. So I got a chance to experience some Four Peaks this week, and then which is a local, and then there's another one. I've been drinking a lot of Daily Driver this week, which is from Flagstaff. Yeah, exactly. So
right here, this is Liz Hunt. Liz Hunt going for her first Javelina 100 finish. This is a beautiful shot right here with the sunrise in the background, the Four Peaks.
Now, I don't think we've got a leaner. I think they're just...
No, that's a leaner.
I saw her coming around here.
Hey,
we got a leaner!
That's a solid 130 right there.
I think that's 130, 2 o'clock in the lean.
Congratulations, Liz Hunt.
That's definitely a leaner.
Ran the 100K in 2022. Actually ran a race I'm very fond of last year, the Hennepin 100.
Beautiful sunrise. Wow.
And now a finisher here at the Javelina 100. Looks like I think that was 199, being flanked on the left and the right by a couple of unofficial pacers. And I think that, I mean, I can't, say for sure with any certainty, but you know how some of these big 100-milers have, that unofficial, pacer, shoot where you can run with everybody, whether it be from Roby Point or basically, coming around the corner in Silverton. But I feel like this is kind of one of those opportunities where if you're with your, if you're coming in from a finish at the Javelina 100 and you catch your crew at your pop-up.
I think I don't know if there's anything in the rules, but you should be allowed to run with your runner throughout the whole loop.
I agree. I think that would be wonderful.
Especially now that I've done it, it's just having that loop experience, sharing it with your crew for whatever, half a mile, or I don't even know how long it is. But man, it's really cool.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It is pretty great. For those that are curious at how big Javelina is, if we get a few hundred more finishers, if we're gonna actually end up at the 5,000 finisher mark all time.
Is that right?
Yeah, we came into today with 4,518 all-time finishers. Our
Where's the tally?
The tally so far is, I believe, 280. So we're about 200 short, give or take.
Oh, we'll get that.
I think it's going to be very close. Or I'm sorry, no, we're at 188. I was looking at the 100K.
Okay.
But still, I mean, it's still doable.
Yeah.
A lot of people on course.
The vast majority of the finishers here are going to be between 28 and 30.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to go back and talk about just the setup, this whatever it is, half mile, 3/4 mile like section that the runners get to come in when they come into to Javelina headquarters, the JQ. It's something to be seen. As someone who is never, I mean, it reminds me of my my festival days. It reminds me of going out to concerts, and you would just see row after row after row of people with their easy ups set up, like either selling their wares or vending. But here it's not that. It's literally the crew, and these tents go 3 deep, and it's 3/4 of a mile long. And when you come in, it is definitely a vibe, AJ. Like I just can't describe what that feeling has to be like for the runners. And I know that it's great because people share tents, and you get to come in and you have this like very dialed in and extravagant kind of crew spot that you would just never have at any other race either. So I think that's something that we should unpack a little bit. I mean, what is that like for you as someone who's ran so many ultras from the old school side?
Having run so many ultras, right? There are various places in races that are like that, running through Forest Hill, for example, at Western States. That happens once, and maybe you're going to see your crew, maybe you're not. You're running through some of the, like going into Ouray at Hard Rock or someplace like that. But here, it's this absolute base camp where many people have gone, and whether it's the front runners, with cameras chasing after them, and everything from that to people like me just kind of coming and going, it just gives this, it just feeds into like Jerry's original ethos, and we know Jamil and Jubilee's goal for this race, which is just continuing to celebrate community. We use community that word in this sport all the time, and I think sometimes we use it as as kind of a throwaway line. Here at Javelina, and especially here at Javelina headquarters, it's alive and well. I mean, right now, as the headquarters is waking up again. I mean, when I finished, by the way, the place was dead. I mean, it was 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Now, my tent was empty. My family wasn't even here yet.
Because you ran too fast.
Because I guess I went too fast for them. But I mean, as camp wakes up again for day 2, it's phenomenal.
Shout out to our
finishers?
Joshua Walters out of Vancouver, British Columbia, finishing in 24:54:21. Congratulations to Joshua. Or actually, Victoria, British Columbia. I don't want to disrespect his home community in that fashion, but congratulations to Joshua, our 189th finisher of the 100-miler. As we mentioned, we would probably need about 290 more in order to get to the 5,000th finish this year. I don't think it's going to be tight. It's going to be quite tight. So that would be 300 more finishers
in 5 hours.
In 5 hours?
Yeah, it might have to wait till 2025.
Let's see. We've got about 310 people on course right now. So if
So I have a feeling if that's the case, we're probably going to be giving like the 5,000th finisher
some sort of fireworks show or something.
Well, it's going to end up being like one of the top 10 finishers on the men's and women's side. It's like
next year,
I will say, I would rather it go to someone in the back of the pack if I'm being honest with you. So yeah. Well, AJ, this to see you out there on the course, to get to meet you here for the first time. Obviously, it's in studio here at the live stream, which is amazing. But I have, as someone who's spectated at Western States multiple times, like obviously listen to your podcast. Like I've just seen you as this person in the community that has like a legacy, has a running legacy for sure. Like if you look at AJ's ultra sign up, it's next level. And then, you're a 10-time finisher at Western States. And that's something I wanted to ask you about as that race has just exploded in demand. And obviously the sport matures. Like this year we had, what was it? 3 or was it 4 finishers that were top 10, that were set, not top 10, 10 Western States finishers.
Yes.
10-time finishers, excuse me.
But the first time since 2019 that anybody finished their 10th.
Right. And I want to ask you, do you feel like that's going to slowly, you feel like that's going to be like an extinct species in the sport, so to speak, as far as like the ability to do it? Like you have to be, and I think the other part of it is like when you think about the tip of the spear, like most runners, I think Ian Sharman comes to mind, but like Katie Lichtai comes to mind, but like there are very few runners that are running fast that are just going to be able to like keep up with what's cycling in from the new crop of runners that are coming in. So I definitely wanted to it's something I wanted to ask you now, when I heard you were going to be coming on the pods, on the live stream.
I do think I was struck when I looked it up because I saw that there were going to be potentially 4 this year, and that the last 10-timer was Ian Sharman in 2019.
Yeah.
And I was in 2014, and there were only 6 between 2014 and 2019 who finished it. I do think it will be a dying breed. I do think that I love the fact that Western States honors that fortitude, But if you're, and I was blessed and I think lucky enough to be in the sport at a time where it wasn't, in the competitive level it is now, where I was able to, get in the top 10 as a relatively kind of regular runner, and that's gone. So yes, Chris.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you can continue your thought. I'm gonna call in our next
jump
finisher.
in for a finisher.
Yeah.
So however, I do think as well, there's a chance for Western States to think about their race and that whole concept of legacy. I mean, for the last 5 years at least, over 80% of the starters at Western States have been first-timers. They want people to have access to the race. People wait years and years to get in, so let's get the first-timers in. You don't have to go back very far, maybe 12 years, that the race only had 60 first-timers, and it was a lot of repeaters and people like me and stuff like that. So I think it's good ultimately for the sport to give everybody a chance to feel that Western States thing.
As we see our next finisher, this is Lindsay Dipole, the local here from Phoenix, Arizona. Lindsay, an educator like UAJW, finishing her first Javelina Jundred, was paced in by Joanna Carr. Lindsay has had a pretty robust race season leading up to this. Finished the Crown King Scramble, a personal favorite of both of ours. Ran the Ram Party 60K earlier this year, as well as a nice total of 58.4 miles at Jackrabbit Jubilee. Good enough for second place on the women's side. And Lindsay...
I thought I recognized her. She probably ran right past
probably
me.
Lapped us a few times. No, Lindsay, actually, I ran into her out at Rattlesnake Ranch a couple times, and she was feeling good and moving well. So looks like we've got a pretty strong finish. Oh, we've got potentially 2 finishers here. I'll have to get some IDs on those. My eyes and my advancing years are not quite what they used to be able to pick off bibs, but... Gonna have to talk to the IT folks about getting an announcer's timing mat right behind us, so we can.
That's a
I
great
think that
idea.
would be fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. I think that would be a next level thing because, like some of those big triathlons, like you'll see like runners coming in and finishing Fast
Mika
and Furious.
sighting out there.
She's been out
See
here
you
all
next
weekend.
time.
Mika Thews has been out here all
She's been
weekend.
out
I
here
saw
all
her
weekend,
at our social hour on Thursday. So
You guys keep talking about this social hour, and I was here Thursday, and I just need to get on the right memo here.
It was great.
I would have enjoyed that a lot, I think.
So we had probably about 90 to 100 people there at Bachelor Pad Barbecue in Fountain Hills, and as I mentioned, they were so gracious. As we see yet another finisher here coming into the chute.
I just want to say one thing for anyone that hasn't been out here. Fountain Hills. You can see the fountain from the parking lot.
Yeah.
Like, I was walking out there the other day with my wife, and she's like, "There's the fountain." I'm like, "What do you mean?" I look. I'm like, "There is literally a column of water shooting 100 feet into the air, and in the middle of the city, it's like downtown in this lake.
Every 15 minutes.
Every 15 minutes, this thing just blasts off, and we're talking it's probably 10, 20 feet in diameter, and it just shoots up 100 feet into the air, and you can literally see it in the background of the parking lot here.
There, you can actually see it from certain
On
peaks,
course.
like around. Well, on course, I don't know because it's like we're kind of in a
Right,
lower
kind of
area.
in a basin.
But there's
Yeah.
a place called Sunrise Peak over here in the western end of the McDowell Mountains, and one of the things I love about it is that when you get to the top, you can actually see like the entire breadth of the Phoenix Valley, and then you turn around and you can see the hill or the fountain in Fountain Hills just shooting up.
Yeah, I looked. I was like, "What is that?" I was like, "Did a main water line go off?" You know? And my wife's like, "No, it's like the thing for the town." I'm like, "That's really cool." So, anyway,
Our most recent finishers, Nathan Blosser and Peter Knox, finishing in tandem. Those were the two guys that came in together, 25:04:09. If the two of them are keeping track, Nathan finished ahead by 12 100ths of a second. So
Bragging rights.
Well, I want. We were laughing. Katie and I were laughing at the junction yesterday, where it goes down to the 1,000th of a second in the live stream, in the live track, and I'm like, yeah, you got to make sure you down to the 1,000th of a second who's winning.
If there's family bragging rights on the line, for instance, we interviewed Dave and Juliet York leading up to the race, husband and wife tandem that are running this race. We got to know who owns the bragging rights for the next year here.
Oh, look at this.
By the way, I want to jump in real quickly on David and Juliet, because I learned after our interview, Chris, that our mutual friend from Hard Rock, Chris Twiggs, is their coach.
Really? I didn't
Is their
realize that.
coach. And Chris, I'm outing you right now. He's like, I know as a coach, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but my favorites are David and Juliet York.
They're
And
wonderful
I can
people.
understand why.
Talking about the community.
Watch their interview, by the way, if you have.
We had a great conversation with them. They were late to the game in terms of like starting this sport a little bit later, but they have embraced it fully. They volunteer out at Cuyamaca and at San Diego 100. They're the aid station captains for the Tiki Party. Actually, that was kind of how I got introduced to them. They gifted me a pair of Tiki socks at one of our socials, and it was pretty gracious, and it's one of my favorite pairs of socks. I wear them on special occasions.
Guys, I'm going to have to sign off.
Being summoned.
Not being summoned, just we got things to do.
I totally get. Hey, you know what? You got your business done here, and you showed that you're back. AJW, thanks for joining us.
And you know what? It's fun to be back. I actually said that with 2 miles to go. I didn't say I was back. What I said was I still got it.
Yeah,
and
man.
I guess the other thing I'd
Yes,
say,
sir.
the last thing I'd say is I do. It is a point of pride for me that as someone who used to be like finishing fast and in the daylight at hundreds, and I don't do that anymore, that I'm still in the sport, and I wish more people did that. So if you're listening out there and you're thinking of leaving the sport, stay in it because it's worth it. I learned that this weekend.
Thank you.
It's fun in the middle of the pack, AJ.
Andy Jones-Wilkins, folks, a legendary runner, a broadcaster, and frankly, just all-around wonderful supporter of the community. It's been an honor to call a race for you for a change.